FYI, welcome. And I'm very happy that I landed an awesome guest for kind of my first show back from my hiatus. So in the form of the one and only Dr. Murray Sabrin, who's going to talk to us about bubble economics today. He's a professor of finance at Ramapo College and the co-founder and president of Conger LH. So we're going to talk to him today about, we're getting back to some hardcore economics. Willie Lawson is here. Hey, Willie Lawson. So I'm really excited about that. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Sabrin when I was subbing for a friend of mine on another show. And it was fantastic. I'm looking forward to talking to him about his research and really just the future of our economic climate, which in light of the president that we have, the unprecedented economic climate that we have, it's going to be very interesting to talk to him about what he sees in our economic future. So you're going to want to hang around for that, for sure. Before we get to that, a bit of housekeeping. I, of course, want to thank my sponsor for the first segment, the one and only Tax Mama, Eva Rosenberg. Thank you so much for being one of my sponsors. And if you have not been to her website already, taxmama.com, tax season's right around the corner, so you might want to get there. She answers your tax questions for free, and she also has 2 award-winning books, Small Business Taxes Made Easy and Deduct Everything. So you want to make sure you check those out. Also, FYI, I just got confirmation actually from my producer at Sirius. Hey, Lamarge. Hi, Robert. Hey, Catherine. How are you? That I'm going to be back on Sirius XM Patriot 125 on Friday. So excited about that. I missed last week just because my schedule was so ridiculously hectic, as it tends to be election week, and I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get it in there. I could not do it, and I was under the weather. So was the other thing. So it was just didn't work out. But I'm back Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. on the West Coast. That's going to be this coming Friday. I always love doing Sirius and talking to the folks. If you are not following me on any of my social media, please do on Twitter at MoneyTalkMel or on Facebook at Money Talk with Melanie. Love, love, love to have you there. What else do we have? Well, we have Money Talk, the Money Talk news report, which there's a lot going on. You know, I don't really want to necessarily talk about Republicans are going to put the House bill up for a floor vote on Thursday. I mean, we should be super excited. Thank you, Lamarge, for your well wishes. We should be feeling excited about the fact that there's a tax bill going up for a floor vote. Everybody's saying it. We got the votes. We're not sweating it. Blah, blah. We're good. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm sorry. I know those are my peeps and all, but they've been falling short a little bit. And then actually, I was reading some financial news earlier today that said that President Trump was like not happy with the current bill and wanted to make some changes. It's going to change anyway. Even when it passes the Senate, it's not. That's not going to be the final bill. Just saying. Who knows what we're actually going to end up with. So keep your eye on that, though. But some people's taxes are actually going to get raised. Lose the IRS. Amen, Michael Patterson. Some people's taxes are actually going to get raised, which is like the most anti-Republican thing you could possibly do. And like we own everything legislatively and in the executive office. It's inexcusable. Sorry if you ask me. That's not what we're supposed to do. That's not our thing. Anyway, I'm just saying. GE, if you have any GE stock, this is of concern for you. they are doing some major restructuring, including they split their dividends. So if you're used to getting, if you're, one of the fortunate few who has stock in GE and you're used to getting a dividend check, they split it from 24 cents a share to 12 cents a share. So you took a major hit in that check, and that's a problem. But the whole goal when they do things like this is to kind of infuse the company with some more capital so they can make major changes and hopefully make more money. So let's hope, for the sake of GE and anybody who has stock and frankly works for that company, is going to be doing okay. That is concerning. Hey, Carol. Hello. Chris Rogers. Hi. And for those of you in SHR Media Land and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio Land who are wondering who I'm saying hi to, that's all the wonderful people in Facey Land who are joining and watching. In toy news, because Christmas is apparently coming up, because I'm hearing Christmas music already. Can we get to Thanksgiving before Chris? Like, I'm hearing Christmas music, but we haven't even gotten to Thanksgiving. Like, Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet, and we're already doing. Anyway, I just get exhausted. Like, all the marketing's just like earlier and earlier. Like, can we take a breath? But that being said, Hasbro approached Mattel about a merger, and this is according to an article in the Wall Street Journal. Those are the two biggest toy makers in the U.S. If they were to merge, then Barbie and Monopoly, for example, will be under the same roof, which, me being the nerd that I am, I'm kind of a huge Monopoly fan. Which Monopoly is the game of the nerds. It is literally, I think, the official game of the nerds. So, oh my goodness. Somebody in the chat said GE company analysts estimate PE estimates. Oh, good. Looks good. Excellent. We like that. Let's hope. Let's hope. That's good. Then the investing that they're doing is a good thing. And we can kind of take a breath and relax. One more thing, only because, always check the price earnings. You're absolutely right about that. One more thing, because I'm kind of, sort of an Uber fan. I don't know. Every time I bring up Uber, like, there's somebody who's like, oh, but the rates. Like, I'm like, really? What rate? Like, I've taken Uber like a bazillion times, and I've never had a problem. I it's very alarmist. But anyway, they just finalized a multi-billion-dollar deal with a Japanese conglomerate. So they're going to be making a lot of changes. I hope for the better. So Lyft better watch out. Michael said I suck at finance. Oh, there's a brand new Money Talk with Melanie Money Talk Minute today, by the way, that I uploaded, and a brand new Ron Edwards notebook, which is coming out right now because we're up against our first break. And when I come back, we will be talking with the one and only Dr. Murray Sabrin. I'm excited about this conversation. We're going to talk about the economic bubble. Is it going to burst? What is going on? He is one of the foremost leaders in finance, leading minds in financial minds. And he's somebody you want to listen to. For sure. We'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we will be back in a few moments.
If you are a Trump-hating rhino Republican, the other way when Democrats literally set out to destroy the Republic, prepare to be booted out of office. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, President Trump clearly stated that the corporate tax rate must be lowered now to make America once again competitive on the world's economic stage. The president even caved in to the globalists and settled at a 20% rate. But now, Republicans are seriously considering a one-year delay before cutting the corporate rate. The Republicans are also trying to gum up the works by not issuing across-the-board tax reductions, despite knowing that such measures could cause a repeat of 1981. Selfish politicians delayed tax reductions for a year and caused a recession. President Reagan agonized over the decision to give in to the statist politicians who persuaded him not to oppose their delay of granting tax relief for the people of America. I pray that Republicans will awaken from their stupor of pretending not to understand that tax cuts bring in more revenue and the wasteful spending must be curtailed. For you Trump haters, he is doing his job, and it is past time you do yours, or prepare to be booted out of office. I'm Ron Edwards. Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit TaxMama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. TaxMama.com. That's TaxMama with one M.com.
My name is David Barnett, and I've been helping people buy and sell small and medium-sized businesses since 2008. So far this year, I've gone on 5 vacations. It's because I've got my own business. When you get tired of being managed by someone else and you decide that business ownership is right for you without the risk of starting your own unproven enterprise, then come over to businessbuyeradvantage.com. There are over 100 YouTube videos on buying and selling businesses that you can watch for free. That's businessbuyeradvantage.com.
And that was David Barnett, another one of my sponsors, who I also want to thank. If you did not hear the name of that website, that's businessbuyeradvantage.com. Hi, Doug. Hi, Jim. Hi, Keith. And everybody else who's, oh gosh, that I'm missing in the chat. Tina, Lori, hi. Thank you for joining me. But if you go to businessbuyeradvantage.com, if you've ever thought about buying a franchise and you're thinking that it's really hard or really difficult or really expensive, David Barnett will convince you otherwise. He's got tons of free instructional videos. He's also got a couple of really cool books. You want to check out his website at businessbuyeradvantage.com, most certainly. Now, without further ado, I want to bring on my guest, Dr. Murray Sabrin. We're going to talk about the economic climate and really bubble economics, as he calls it. Just a little bit about him. He's a professor in finance at the Annisville School of Business at Ramapo College of New Jersey. We're both Jersey folks at opposite ends of the state. He's been a member of the faculty since 1985. He's a PhD in economic geography, an MA in social studies education, and a BA in history, geography, and social studies education. Murray, I don't think you have enough degrees. Yes.
Well, thank you, Melanie. It's a pleasure being with you on such a dreary day, and hopefully we can shed some sunlight onto what's going on in America today and how we can make it better.
Absolutely. And you know, it's an exciting time / frightening time, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
In our economic climate.
Well, hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the exciting time is all these new inventions, innovations that are taking place in every single field under the sun, from e-commerce to artificial intelligence to social media to medical breakthroughs to better food that we're getting, to better diagnoses of illnesses so they can be diagnosed much earlier. So people who were given death sentences years ago from diseases are now living much longer and more healthier lives because of these breakthroughs. So you've got to be optimistic about the future, which is essentially what Warren Buffett has said for many decades now. America keeps on progressing. The fly in the ointment, as we all know, is that we go through these periodic gut-wrenching downturns in the economy, both in the stock market and in the real economy, because we have an institution which is more than 100 years old now, which I have a documentary on at Sabrin Films on YouTube on the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913, as people know, to stabilize the economy, to iron out the business cycle, and to keep prices stable. And it's failed on all those counts. So the question that I have for all the policymakers and the politicians is, why do we still have an institution that hasn't been able to fulfill its mission since it was created in 1913. And that's the essence of the research I've done last semester when I was on sabbatical. And I'll be presenting the results of my research Wednesday night at Ramapo College at 7:30. And we'll have people in the audience, and we're going to have it streamed live on the Sabrin Center website. My wife and I created the Sabrin Center for Free Enterprise at Ramapo College. And tomorrow night, I'll be posting the link where people can go on my Facebook page, where they can see the presentation from all over the world on how the Fed creates bubbles. And then I'll be predicting when the next bubble will occur.
Excellent. Now, I want you to explain to the audience, because there's one really creepy, and every time you and I talk, we talk about this, right? There's one really creepy thing about the Fed that the public at large generally doesn't know. One big creepy thing. The Federal Reserve, you would think, is a federally owned by the people entity. Wouldn't you think that?
Well, that's what it sounds like.
But is that the case?
Well, no, the Federal Reserve banks are owned by the banks in the region, as I understand it, and they own stock in it. So basically, it's a private entity, but the profits of the Federal Reserve go to the U.S. Treasury. And I believe last year they handed over something like $60 to $80 billion in the profits that they made from all the $4 trillion of debt that they own. And so most of that debt, most of those earnings go to the federal government. So the federal government has created an entity that has the ability to create money out of thin air, buys government bonds, and they earn interest, and that goes to help pay for the federal budget. So essentially, the Federal Reserve has become, if you will, for the federal government. So they keep on spending, and yet they're still running a $500 to $1 trillion deficit. So we have finances that, in any normal situation, would call for, to use Bernie Sanders' term, a revolution. Because if people actually knew how the Fed operates, they would be appalled. They now know they're getting virtually zero on their savings accounts, and that's because the Federal Reserve has depressed interest rates, which makes savings very difficult in a bank. So people have been taking on more risk assets, and they've been buying stocks, and they've been buying real estate and other things to get higher rates of return than what the banks offer. So we've created, in effect, one of the biggest bubbles in human history, and that's what I'm going to show Wednesday night, is how large this bubble actually is, and what are the probable consequences of this bubble, which we know we've lived through the two past bubbles in the 90s and the 2000s with the dot-com bubble and the real estate bubble, and this is what some people have called the everything bubble. Everything is inflated. I love to read the New York Times Sunday real estate section and see the prices of the new condos in Manhattan. And some of them start at $3-4 million. That's the lowest price for a condo, when years ago that would be the highest price. And you see condos selling for $10, $20, $50 million. One recently went into foreclosure, a penthouse apartment that sold for $51 million. I think it sold for $36 million. So there's something starting to happen. Maybe it was just a one-time thing with this Nigerian businessman that overextended himself. But the point is, these prices are just so ridiculous that they don't make any sense. In a normal world, housing would not be as expensive as it is today.
Exactly. And now, because of the way the Fed is structured, we have total transparency, of course. Like we know who they are. And we know how much each entity that's part of the Fed is investing. Like, we know everything. It's completely open, right?
I think you got your tongue in your cheek here.
Indeed, I do. Indeed, I do.
The Fed is not very transparent, even though they claim to be, because during the financial crisis of 2007, 2009, people claimed that they did all sorts of financial transactions which would not revealed to the American people. And so that's what Ron Paul tried to do when he was in Congress, is to have a bill to audit the Fed, to see exactly what they were doing on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, to find out who they were bailing out, because the Fed's balance sheet, in other words, the assets the Fed owned, which they were able to get because they have an unlimited checking account went from $800 billion to $4.5 trillion literally overnight. If you look at the chart, which I'm going to have on Wednesday night's presentation, it looks like a rocket ship taking off. It went $800 billion, and then they started buying up mortgage-backed securities. They started buying up government debt from the banks, and the balance sheet ballooned to an unprecedented level. And now they're in a conundrum. They're trying to, quote, wind that down to reduce the balance sheet. And so they said they're going to do it over many, many years. And so the question is, what's going to happen to interest rates as they accelerate their downsizing of their balance sheet? And then how will that impact the stock market? And so that's something I'll be discussing Wednesday night at the Ramapo College at 7:30.
Indeed. And I saw the chart on your website. You guys would do well to check it out at MaurySabrin.com, right?
That's it. The poster is right there, showing a chart that I got from Yahoo Finance. Shows that the dot-com bubble gave us a big spurt in the S&P 500 index in the 1990s, which peaked in 2000. Then we got the housing bubble, and it showed the S&P skyrocketing. And now we have the third movement in the S&P. Unfortunately, the chart ends, I think, in 2014, so it doesn't have the most recent boom in the stock market since the presidential election last year. And so I have an updated chart in the PowerPoint presentation which shows where we are today, which is absolutely stunning. I mean, if you're invested in the stock market like I am through my retirement account at the college,
right,
it's done extremely well. The question is, what happens if we have another major downturn like 2007, 2009? Then all those gains will evaporate, and then you're back to square one.
Absolutely. And under normal circumstances, when I teach people about how to detect fraud, one of the indicators of fraud, you know what I'm about to say, right? One of the indicators of fraud is that the value of your portfolio keeps going in one direction, keeps going up. That's an indicator of fraud, because that is not typically how the market works. You're supposed to have fluctuations. So,
well, the market is going to fluctuate based upon seasonal factors and extraneous events that may impact people's perception about the future. But the stock market should not be increasing the way it has been,
right,
especially when you look at the dot-com bubble. The market went up tenfold in the NASDAQ, where the high-tech stocks were traded. The index went from 500 to 5,000 in a matter of 4 years. That is totally unsustainable, and I have a beautiful chart showing that. And then it crashed 80%, comparable to what happened from 1929 to 1932. And now, of course, the NASDAQ has skyrocketed because of all the value in quotes that is attributed to the social media stocks, Amazon, and all these big cap stocks like Google and Microsoft again is doing quite well. So we've seen another race to the top, if you will, in these stocks. And the question is, how high can they go? And when they reach a peak, what happens then? And that's the $64,000 question.
It really is. And you know how I hate to talk about politics. But what do you think? I mean, President Trump makes a lot of fodder of the fact that the stock market is going higher and higher.
Yeah, this is not good for him, because if we do have a major downturn during his term, he's going to get blamed for it. So he's taking credit for it. Then he's going to have to take the blame for it if it goes down. But the point is, it's the Federal Reserve that really is the engine, if you will, of the boom and the bust. And that's what I'll be expounding upon on Wednesday night, because most people don't know the mechanism of how it works. And I have a chart that shows how this mechanism works, and people get a sense of this is not normal. This is not a normal market economy. A normal market economy is where prices are slowly falling, which is what happened throughout most of the 19th century, particularly after the Civil War, as the great industrialization took a hold of the United States. And we had tremendous output in industry after industry, and prices were falling slowly, which meant that the average person's living standards were going up. Because if their wages stayed the same and prices were falling, 2-3% a year, that means your standard of living was going up 2-3% a year.
Right.
We don't have that anymore. For most people, the average American worker across this great country of ours, their living standards are either flat to down over the last 15 years because wages haven't kept pace with the cost of living. And something about the cost of living, which your listeners should know, is that some people believe that the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, understates the cost of living, and therefore people are really falling behind. And the Fed thinks that CPI overstates the rate of inflation, and that's why they want to have a target of a 2% inflation rate, which is so bizarre. I don't know any human being on the planet that wants to pay more now than they did a year ago for the same products that they're buying. Yet the Fed is telling us this is good economic policy, that prices rise. I've never heard such economic nonsense in my whole life.
That sounds like the same people who say, you know, we must necessarily raise taxes every year without ever looking at cutting anything ever.
Well,
I'm
glad you brought up taxes, because as people's incomes go up, they pay more in taxes. So governments, especially state and local governments and the federal government, loves inflation. In other words, the increase in the supply of money, because people's wages go up, maybe not as fast as they'd like to. Profit income goes up for businesses, so they're paying more taxes. So government gets more revenue without having to raise tax rates. And so that's why we need a massive tax cut. And I don't think this tax bill, what I read, will accomplish that.
Now, and when you say that, do you mean across the board on corporate taxes and our personal taxes, or is that what you don't think is enough? They seem to have.
Yeah, I mean, the tax rate should be going down. That's the essence of creating a limited government and a more free enterprise, free market economy. Is taxes decline, which means that families will have more money for their living expenses. It means they'll have more money for their investment opportunities, and it means they'll have more money for their charitable contributions. That's what life is all about. Leading the good life, whatever people think the good life is for them in terms of expenditures, saving for the future when someday they may decide not to work any longer, have financial security, and third, to be compassionate and charitable in their local community to help the organizations to do the good work that they do at the local level. That is what a great society, or to make America great again, to use President Trump's term, that's what he should be advocating. I mean, I don't have his ear, but if someone who knows him is listening, that's what he should be calling for, to desocialize the economy, to get government out of the welfare state, to abolish the welfare state, which Peter Drucker called for in 1991 in a magnificent article I've constantly quoted from in the Wall Street Journal, where he says the welfare bureaucracies do not deliver the services in a cost-effective and good way to people, and the nonprofit sector is the way to go. And the way to do that is to cut taxes so people have more money to express their charitable giving in their local community. To go back to what 19th century America was about, in fact, before the Great Depression, where people got together at the local level, either they're connected either by trade unionism, ethnic groups, national groups. People got together because they had a common goal to make sure that their members were taken care of in hard times. And that's exactly how it worked from colonial days up until the Great Depression. Now, we still have a lot of charitable giving, but the Great Depression changed the view of a lot of people that the federal government has to intervene, that states and local governments have to create these welfare bureaucracies to deliver services to people. And the history of America is just the opposite. It was people at the local level doing what they felt was compassionate and helping their fellow citizens during hard times as a temporary way of getting them to be financially independent. Instead, we've created this huge dependency on government, which means what? Their fellow citizens through a course of means called taxation. So I've been advocating for more than 40 years now that we should go back to what works. Freedom, limited government, local solutions for local problems, and have sound money so we don't have this crazy inflation and boom bust cycle that is very painful over a person's lifetime.
I agree with you. And you know what's interesting that you bring that up, because you don't hear much about, like, even in the blueprint for the budget, you didn't hear much about, or at least I didn't. Maybe you did. You didn't hear much about cutting entitlement programs.
No. See, the Republicans are in a trap, and that trap really began in the 1930s when they overwhelmingly support the Social Security Act of 1935, which nobody understood, by the way. I've just presented that to my students in my financial history class. The research is there, the evidence is there. What the Republicans want is lower taxes but maintain the welfare state.
Right. And you can't do that.
That is a disaster financially for the country. It started with Reagan. Reagan cut tax rates, which was great, but spending kept on increasing. And then Bush 1 and 2 gave us more regulation, and Bush 2 gave us an expansion of Medicare. Years ago, the Republicans were opposed to Medicare and its expansion. So Bush gave us prescription drugs. He gave us more No Child Left Behind, more government involvement in education. Where in the Constitution does it say that the federal government should be involved in education? So these are the people who take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and the first day in office, they violate it by voting for programs that are not constitutionally based. So we have a constitutional crisis, we have a financial sustainability crisis, and of course we have another crisis that we're trying to be the policeman of the world.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of work to do to get back to the original vision of America, which is limited government. The federal government does a few things authorized by the Constitution, and we, the people, decide how to lead our lives without having the federal government dictate to us what we can or cannot do.
And I guess we're up against a break, so we can talk about this on the other side of the break. I probably shouldn't bring up the healthcare issue and the block grants and the fact that we didn't and that situation. I mean, we have so much going on in our economy that a bubble would be an absolute disaster. And not forget about healthcare, but let's talk about the $250 billion in trade agreements that the president is working on overseas right now, and the repatriation part of the tax bill. Like, will that really infuse enough money into the economy to get it going? I don't know, but we're going to talk about all of that stuff on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. I have Dr. Murray Sabrin with me. I'm privileged to have one of the finest minds in economics with me today for my first show back in a week or so. So I'm very excited. We're talking bubble economics with him, and we will be back in a few moments. Welcome to this week's Money Talk Minute with your business diva, Melanie Collette. This week, we're going to discuss interest rates. Why are they important? Well, they're important on two sides of your financial coin. On the one side, you have your debt, credit card debt, loans, and things like that. You always want to get the lowest interest rate possible. Why? That means that money is costing you a lot less to borrow with a lower interest rate. And speaking of that, when you're looking at which loan or which credit card to pay off first, you're always going to look at the interest rate. Which one has the highest interest rate? That's the one you want to start paying off first. On the savings side of the financial coin, what kind of savings account do you want to open? What one should you choose? You will always choose the one with the best interest rate. And on the savings side, the best interest rate will be the highest interest rate. This means it will yield you the highest amount of return. And that's it for your Money Talk Minute of the week. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello.
I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America. And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Okay, we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette. And I have with me this afternoon Dr. Murray Sabrin, and we're talking about the economic bubble. And actually, we've had several back-to-back bubbles, and we're talking about another. I think Dr. Sabrin is predicting impending doom. I'm kidding, but not really. As far as what we're discussing, and we're discussing all of the moving parts, but mostly the fact that we are in a huge bubble now, and predictably the way economics works, there's probably going to be another one coming. That those types of things can, right?
Yeah, the data that I've gathered, the charts that I've put together, when you add it all up, there are 4 charts that really highlight that we are getting closer and closer to the peak in both the economy and the stock market. So when they all line up, it's like the stars, when they all line up to get when everything lines up for the eclipse. That's what I'm going to show Wednesday night, and it's pretty powerful stuff. In fact, I also obtained from a newsletter that I read from an analyst on the West Coast. He has an interesting chart, which I'm going to also present, and he gives a specific month where the stock market should peak. So again, I'm being deliberately vague so people can tune in Wednesday night on the internet, and I'll be posting that. I'll probably post it tonight on my Facebook page and tomorrow night as well, because I think we need a big audience so people can first of all learn about how the Fed operates, and then see exactly when this thing could break. I mean, there's no guarantee that it'll break exactly the time that this analyst thinks, but the indicators that I've put together, they will give us a clue as to when the stock market is peaking, and then people have to make choices of what they should do. If you're a young person, you can write it out because you're looking to invest for the next 40, 50, 60 years.
Right.
If you're nearing retirement, and you've got a portfolio that's pretty substantial because we've had this big increase in the stock market since 2009, you have to make a decision as to what you're going to do if you have most of your assets in stocks, and you can see a pretty substantial decline, and it'll take several years to recover that. So this is where you have to work with a financial advisor to see what your own specific situation is, so you can make good choices for your financial future.
Exactly. And now, do you see things like, for example, the lowering of the corporate tax, the possible repatriation, which that's another thing that I've heard pretty quiet. Like, I haven't heard a percentage attached to repatriation or how they're going to do that. And just for the edification of the audience, that word is thrown around a lot. And basically what happens is companies earn money overseas, and a lot of times they don't bring it back. They just reinvest it overseas, because if they bring it back, it'll be taxed at a 35% corporate tax rate. Repatriation is kind of the idea that they can bring some of the money back at a much lower rate, like a one-time memoriam, if you will.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, here's my take on taxation. Since I wrote the book on how we can have a tax-free society that was published more than 20 years ago, called Tax-Free 2000, and I think there are copies still available on Amazon.
Wow.
Here's my point. The corporate income tax should be abolished, lock, stock, and barrel, because it's double taxation.
Yep.
People who get dividends from corporations pay tax on that income that's already been taxed at the corporate level. So if you want to have income tax once, then we get rid of the corporate income tax, and all the income, net income that a corporation obtains, that should be allocated to shareholders, and shareholders then will pay the tax on that income. In other words, income will be taxed only once. As far as repatriation goes, that money should come back tax-free for the simple reason it's already been taxed overseas.
Yep.
So why should the federal government tax money that's already been taxed? Just as we pay high property taxes in New Jersey, high income taxes, we should be able to deduct that of our federal tax return, so we don't pay twice on income that's already been taxed. So again, the goalpost should be, we should be moving toward getting taxes as low as possible. The ideal situation from my perspective as a libertarian, as a free enterprise advocate, of a limited government advocate, we should go as quickly as possible toward a zero tax society. Because if you look at the tax situation prior to the income tax of 1913, most Americans paid very little taxes. In fact, when we got the income tax in 1913, only 2% of the American people paid the income tax. 98% of the American people were exempt. There was no Social Security tax, no Medicare taxes, and the top rate was from 1% to 7%. So the tax rates back in 1914, when the income tax was implemented, were so minuscule that it didn't affect the average person, and therefore people felt comfortable with having a federal income tax. But what happened? World War I came around, and the rate went from 7% on the top end to 77%, and everyone paid the income tax, and we've been there ever since. However, because of all the other deductions that have taken place, almost half of the American people don't pay the income tax. So I say, let's get the other half of the American people not paying the income tax, and we'll finally repeal the crime of 1913, which is the 16th Amendment.
Well, it sounds like what you're suggesting as a wealthy libertarian is that you wealthy people at the top, you 1%ers, just get more money. It sounds like you're just being very greedy.
So far from the 1%ers, it's unbelievable. I can't afford anything in Manhattan or even Queens now in Brooklyn. The prices are so expensive. That's why people should move to New Jersey, and the prices are a fraction of what they are in New York City. And it's so easy from where I live in Fort Lee to get into the city. You'd be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars on your apartment, and you'd save a ton of money by living in Fort Lee, because we're so close to the city. But the point is, more money in people's pockets from their work, from their businesses, means that they can grow their businesses, they can save for their retirement, and we don't have the money going to the bureaucracies in Washington. We don't have money going to the military-industrial complex to police the world and have undeclared wars. What I'm saying is, we need to go back to the vision of America that was based upon limited government. That was what Jefferson wanted. Hamilton wanted crony capitalism. He won out. We've been living with crony capitalism now for more than 200 years, and that's why we have all this debt, all this funny money, which give us bubbles, all these income taxes, payroll taxes. If you're a small business owner, you have to work very hard to have a decent return on your investment, because between local, state, and federal regulations and taxes, you're working for about half of your year for the government. That's not right.
It's not. And when you talk to anyone, and I've kind of been conducting my own little unscientific experiment, which is just to ask people, about how they feel about taxes, specifically the corporate tax. And they will tell you, these companies have, quote unquote, all this money, and small businesses. But if they had any idea how small profit margins are, and that eventually okay. Are you still there?
I'm still there.
Okay. I heard like a static for a second. I don't know what that was. But that eventually that cost is only going to go back to the consumer. People don't understand that. They don't get that profit margins are very small. I had to explain to someone the other day about their hotel room, and I said, well, who do you think pays for the lights, and the front desk agent who checked you in, and the chambermaid who cleans your room, and I went through the list of things that has to happen in a hotel for you to stay there for $50 a night.
Yeah, 50. I was in Manhattan last month for a conference, and the hotel I stayed at in Midtown, I think it was close to $300 for the night. And it was not a luxurious room. It was a nice room, but $300 for a hotel room for one night. I mean, it's mind-boggling what prices are in Manhattan. I mean, Manhattan is an example of how this bubble is reflected in prices in big cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Boston, Dallas. It's just mind-boggling. And for the average person, they can't stay in these places.
Oh, yeah, listen.
You have to stay somewhere, I don't know, if there are any really inexpensive places in Manhattan to stay for an evening or 2 or 3. I'm
going to tell you something. When Sirius XM is in Manhattan, the studio, and when I go to Sirius, and it's at night, it's 9 to midnight, I Airbnb. I do not stay in Manhattan. I don't stay in Manhattan at $150, $200 a night. No, absolutely not. I'll Airbnb someplace which is it's much less expensive.
Well, the point I'll be making in the presentation is that if we had a real free market economy, prices would be falling every year. And even with the bubble, the money printing by the Fed, prices are still coming down on computers, on high-tech items, on all these things where there's tremendous productivity and innovation. And the example I give to my students is the first computer I bought, I think, was 1984. It was, I think, $2,000. And today, for $2,000, I can get a computer that's 99.9999% better than that computer.
Yep, absolutely. That is absolutely true. So where can we find you? If we wanted to go, if you're in New Jersey and you wanted to see the presentation live, or if we want to see it streaming, how can we do so? I'm going to post it in the chat.
Yeah, the presentation will be at 7:30 Wednesday evening at Friends Hall, which is right around the corner from the bookstore in the Student Center on the beautiful campus of Ramapo College in downtown Mahwah on Route 202. You can Google that; it's very easy to get to. And then, you do have the link I sent you, Melanie, for the page where the screen will be, the live screen will pop up Wednesday night.
Yes, I do believe I do.
Okay, so I'm going to post it also on my Facebook page and my blog, murraysabrin.com, because it's important that people understand what's going on, how the Federal Reserve has been harming their personal finances, except, of course, if you're heavily invested in stocks, because stocks have been going up, and that's why wealthy people love the Fed, because it inflates values to an extraordinary extent. And I have a great quote from one of the multi-billionaire money managers who explains why the Fed is so good to the one percenters. And then we'll go through this very systematically. And I have front covers of books where people can get better educated about what's happening to the U.S. economy and how they will be prepared for the next downturn. And hopefully, Trump has put himself in a real crosshead because he's now applauding this great stock market
exactly
boom we had since the election. But if the economy tanks and the stock market goes down, and I'm going to make a prediction of how far the stock market will go down based upon some past experiences. So I'll be showing that as well. So there's a lot of good information I'll be conveying on Wednesday night at 7:30 at the college. So hopefully people can attend if they're in the northern New Jersey area. If not, they can watch it anywhere in the world on the internet at the Sabrin Center website, and I'll be posting that on Facebook.
Yep, and I posted it. I posted it and I pinned the comments in the live stream on Facebook. So if you're listening on shrmedia.com, you can go to my Facebook page, and the link is right there, and it's pinned to the top, so you don't have to wade through all the other comments. Dr. Sabrin, thank you so much for being on the show today. As always, you did a fantastic job. I appreciate it. Extremely informative. Break a leg.
I will. Thank you so much, and I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody in Facey, everybody on SHR Media, High Plains Pundit Talk Radio for listening. You guys totally rock. You guys in Facey, you rock hard. Thank you for all your wonderful comments and for watching and for listening. Remember, all of this is very important because, after all, it is your money.